Welcome to a brief introduction of the work of the Prison Seminary Foundation. The foundation was established by Burl Cain, who retired as the senior warden of the Angola State Penitentiary in Louisiana in 2016. What he learned during his tenure as warden was that moral rehabilitation is the key to bringing culture change to any prison in America. This paradigm shift has sparked a nationwide movement and is the purpose and foundation of the Prison Seminary Foundation. My name is Denny Autry. I'm the Director of Operations for the Foundation, but as the Dean and Professor of Southwestern Seminary's partnership with Texas Department of Criminal Justice, I too had the first-hand experience of seeing moral rehabilitation flow into the Texas prison system using this PSF model. This short video will explain what moral rehabilitation is and how it is impacting state prisons across America by highlighting only 3 of our programs: Louisiana, Texas, and North Carolina. I hope you enjoy and learn much.
Burl Cain grew up a farm boy in southwest Louisiana. Together with a Bible-believing mother and their country church, Burl Cain was bound to find a way to help others. But he arrived in corrections as incarcerations skyrocketed. In 1972, just over 200,000 prisoners were locked up in American jails, but by 2014, that number had shot to over 1.5 million. Another 700,000 are in county jails on any given day, with some 12 million grinding through the system each year. Inmate deaths jumped to 3,500 in 2013. That's the highest number on record. Inmate suicides, over 300 a year. 113 corrections officers were killed in the last decade, with over 125,000 injured. Corrections absenteeism is now more than 4 times the national average, and the divorce rate, 1 in 2. The last place Burl Cain wanted to go was to Louisiana's notorious state penitentiary at Angola. For a century, it had been called America's bloodiest prison, with inmate murders nearly every night. Federal judges declared states of emergency as late as 1989. In 1995, Warden Burl Cain assumed responsibility for some 6,000 prisoners in an area the size of Manhattan. He had to make Angola pay for itself, and he also had to mandate rehabilitation all at the same time. Secular programs taught anger management and earning a trade to those who basically had no hope of leaving. Education alone, he found, only made a smarter criminal. What really needed to change was the heart, starting with his own.
The first time in my life that I really felt that God talked to me was here, but it was also the first time in my life that I was desperate enough to listen. The whole deal was, if I could make a moral, I could heal a prison. We found a morality in religion because in our culture, you find morality quicker in religion than anywhere else, and I'm desperate for morality real quick. Now, the cool thing about moral rehabilitation is everybody from every group, atheist or what have you, wants people to be moral, and they want them to rehabilitate. So those 2 words could find no enemies.
Turn in your textbook, please, to 151. Jesus is talking.
Cain calls it moral rehabilitation. Pell Grants for prisoners were banned just as Cain took over Angola, so he invited the accredited 4-year program at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary to come teach at their own expense, and not just teach, but teach love in a prison. The majority of prisoners did not enroll, but violence plummeted. Inmates saw themselves in the redemption story because nearly all of Christ's disciples wound up as prisoners. Out of that came a message of hope that love did prevail, and that forgiveness was the ultimate freedom. Burl Cain showed them the way to peace.
Angola, the warden down there, Burl Cain, he was probably the best warden in the history of our country. He turned that Angola prison, which was the worst prison in America, the bloodiest prison in America, and he turned that whole prison completely around, and it was really the Christians in the state of Louisiana that helped Burl Cain.
Many people in prison are there because they made bad choices, harmful choices that damaged themselves, damaged their families, damaged the people who were their victims. And they made those bad choices in many cases, and many causes for crime, but one big reason is they did not get good early guidance. in their lives, from parents, schools, church. They were all absent.
I served my sentence in Louisiana State Penitentiary. I was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences in 5 years. So, man, that was like, man, so am I gonna die in prison now?
When I got to Angola, it was real hardcore prison. You buried more than you released out the front gate. And they were very violent because it'd been that way. That's just the nature of it. It was every man for himself. There was no community. And so it was a very, very violent place. And I realized that moral people don't rape, pilfer, and steal. And if I can find morality, I can calm the prison. But that's the only way I can do it, is to change the inmates. I can't force it on them.
We have brought all these people in. We're bringing them in by the tens of thousands a year, new people. And he said, we're not doing anything for them. The product we're turning out may be worse than what comes in. That is horrible. That is detrimental to society and horrible for the prisons.
So we come up with the term moral rehabilitation. We originated that term, and then culture change. And so there were some spiritual people at Angola. There were some churches already there, but they were isolated pretty good a bit from the good and the bad. And so I just needed to mix them, because I was still focused on changing the prison by my morality, because moral people don't steal your lawnmower, stealing, robbing, hurting other people, selfishness, that's all selfish. So what does religion do? Religion is where you find morality quicker than anywhere else. And we didn't care what religion, there's morality in all religions. So it was a tool to get me where I need to be, to change their lives so that they would peacefully coexist one with the other.
Many, many people are in prison nowadays because they do not have a moral foundation in their lives. And so when they come to prison, very often for the first time, they hear about a moral life, a life of doing the right thing.
Baptist Seminary would come up here and give you a school. I said, you know, they wouldn't do that. He said, yeah, they would, I believe, if you give them a place. I said, well, tell them to come on. And I give them a place, and that's basically how it started. So we started building community, but the seminary enabled us to have the community leaders that were spiritual leaders.
And so Prison Seminaries Foundation was founded by Burl Cain in 2016 to put seminaries in prisons to train selected inmates to be ministers to their fellow prisoners.
Most of the social science research points to that people who are involved in these in peer ministries, in inmate-led religious movements, display much more pro-social behavior and tend to come back to prison at a reduced rate compared to those who don't.
PSF helps seminaries and DOCs navigate these sorts of challenges because they're doing it right. We don't want programs like this to be viewed as favoring one religion over another, especially when we talk about having a faith-based program in a state institution.
The key to it was keeping it separated to church and state, which meant no tax dollars involved. So I had to find a donor. You have to have a seminary that's accredited. And the third thing is you have to have a sustaining team. Somebody's got to raise the money because the school can't raise the money.
PSF helps departments of corrections and seminaries navigate these kinds of issues by doing what they're doing, which is to say, educating, proactively informing seminaries and departments of corrections of the issues, how to think about the issues, and how to implement best practices.
We have lower recidivism rates. It changes the culture of prisons. We will spend less on tax dollars, less court costs, less medical costs.
There is a movement that's happening inside of the prisons, and so to see people who are able to find joy and purpose and meaning in their life in what to me seems one of the most hopeless places possible, I think is really compelling.
There are people coming out of prison who are ministers in the free world. They're pastors in churches. Out there, they used to be in prison, but they're not anymore. And so if you have a transformed, morally rehabilitated inmate released to the community is going to be better.
I believe we will see revival come to this country from the prisons as much as the churches.
Prison Seminary Foundation is helping to change that narrative, and that they're helping to equip people to be able to change their mindset, whereby they can change their heart, their behaviors, right? And then come back and have a positive impact on their communities.
We saw the culture change, but the real change agent was a seminary. And it's amazing story. I wasn't that smart. I didn't figure it out. It was just happening before my eyes, but we fixed it. I didn't fix it, it was a God thing. I wasn't that smart. No human being could have fixed it.
When I heard about the transformation, I said, someone has to tell this story. It's an incredible story of redemption.
They had no idea that they could take their life within this prison and become pastors to change the lives of others. And that's what every apostle has done for Jesus for generations.
They've been going to school every day for the last 4 years, and they are going to be our first inmates to become pastors. Not a dollar of public money or taxpayer money, all privately raised.
I have been doing this a long time, working in criminal justice, and as I said at the press conference, I have scores of programs that I've worked in. But ladies and gentlemen and members of the ministry and students and graduates, nothing is more impressive and moving to be a part of this program. But never before, a 4-year bachelor degree, a certified licensed minister will be assigned to other penitentiaries to work with those inmates. And I can't say what a miracle it is. I've publicly said a moment ago, this program makes me a better man, a better senator, a better Christian, and I'm just excited to play a small role in the success of this program. So we have a reason to celebrate. We've got a lot of work left in front of us.
Our system now has more than 1,500, 1,600 individuals who will be in the system for their natural life.
17 years.
Natural life.
A life sentence. 2 life sentences of 40 years. The crime makes a great headline, but behind it's a lot of broken men, that are in pain, that are in shame, regret for the things that we've done. We regret those things.
So many of them came out of broken homes. So many of them, as I like to say often, started life with 2 strikes against them and a broken bat. And so, yes, they made mistakes, but my goodness gracious, the odds were really stacked against them. Why wouldn't we want to come alongside of them at this particular point in time in their life to say to them, we think you're valuable, we think you're important, we think you have something to contribute to the building of the kingdom of God. I had been praying about it for almost a decade, and I had seen again what had been done in Angola prison, then later got to see what was going on in Darrington, in Texas, and I saw both programs and I said, we can do this. I don't know how we're going to get there, but we can do this. Not only can we do this, we must do this. And so when the folks from Joe Gibbs came to talk with us about it, there was no hesitation on this end at all.
We want to see that culture and that string of crime broken in the lives of people across the state of North Carolina. We believe that moral rehabilitation programs get at the heart of the real question that every single person, incarcerated or not incarcerated, ask, and that's, why am I here? What is my purpose? What was I created to do? What we're hoping to do is to create a scenario in which when they graduate from this program, they're teamed up with another 3 or 4 guys and they're sent out together as teams. And they are the ones who are establishing their culture, and we know that they will have the greatest impact on those short-term inmates that are actually going to be leaving, going out in the community.
A life sentence to ministry. 2 life sentences and 40 years in ministry. 17 years of ministry.